That's awesome.
Hey,
That's
Amy, are you back?
we'll kick this puppy off.
There's Amy, and
I'm
yeah,
here.
man, why don't you kick us off there, partner? Let's get
Awesome.
rolling.
Well, and Jason and I were having this conversation. Amy has had this conversation with us previously as well. Just so everyone knows, we are a consignment company, of course. We never got into doing the free webinar series to push our products or to parade that we're a consignment company and we have awesome, affordable experiences and they work great. They do work great. However, we get so many questions about how to properly use consignment items on a regular basis on the webinar via email or LinkedIn or what have you, that it's a really important topic. People have been asking us for a long time or consistently about how to use consignment properly. And we definitely have an opinion or a few actually to share with you. So that's first and foremost. There's also a huge, we've mentioned this just about weekly, there's a huge crunch for items in the fundraising world just because of the time that we've come out of. That's a reality. I'm not saying that it's that way for everyone and broad stroking it, but that's the feedback that we're getting. So that's the impetus for having this conversation. So we really do want to have a conversation because we have so much experience, Jason and Amy, especially with consignment items, whether they're ours or someone else's. And there's lovely other organizations out there that offer great experiences that we don't even have, that we work well with and coexist with at particular events, as a matter of fact. We're going to get some really, really good experience share from Amy and Jason today. How to use consignment, how to use it effectively, how to capitalize and make the most money and make sure that you're putting the right consignment items in your event. Jason and Amy are going to cover how to make sure you're making the most amount of money that you possibly can and educating your MC or auctioneer on how to utilize the consignment items properly, because there's no sense. There's a cool thing about consignment is that it don't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything up front, of course, right? So there's no upfront cost. There's only gain. We want to gain. We want you to raise more money with consignment. So we're hopefully going to show you how to do that and expand on that. You can also sell multiple items, obviously, with consignment. So that's a really lovely plus. And very, very important, Jason's going to cover this and Amy's got a ton of experience with this, is how to display and market the consignment items properly. I think this is huge. It's an underappreciated facet of using consignment. And so here we are. And questions, please, chat feature, Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. Keep them coming. I'm going to monitor those portions because I am not as much of an expert in the space as Jason and Amy. As much as I might like to think so. That's just not the case. But we have our dear friend, Amy Myers, Senior Fundraising Manager, National Fundraising Director for MDA and Community Engagement with MDA. She's on the road right now, of course, but thankful that she could join us today. And then my friend and compadre and partner, Jason Ledlow, Trevor Nelson with HGA Fundraising. Thanks so much for coming with us another week. And like I said, please keep the questions coming because I know folks have a lot of questions because we get them every single day, every single week on the webinar about how to use consignment. And it doesn't have to be our stuff. Once again, it could be anyone's stuff. So let us help any way we can. And of course, stay till the very end because we're going to draw a winner, a lucky winner for a consignment item that they can use at their next event. So I'll bid you adieu from there.
Yeah. Hey, and if you're watching from a camera, from like your computer or something like this, if you go up there to the top right and it says view and just click on gallery, you should be able to see everybody no matter what, but just want to let you know that you can see everybody. Amy, so glad that you could be here. Like I said, her daughter is a rock star. She's going to be a junior, right?
No, she's only going to be a sophomore.
A sophomore. So she's playing AAU basketball, tournament basketball.
Yeah.
And I got to see a little bit. She shared a little bit of video with Trevor and I, and she's bad to the bone. I mean, she's really, really good. So I used to do that with my youngest son. We traveled all over the country going to tournaments and stuff. And so while part of me is glad that time is gone, part of me really misses it. So it's a lot of fun. Consignment. Yeah, we had a lot of questions last week. We were talking about it. And I've seen consignment screwed up so many times over the past 20, 30 years, and I've seen it where it's made tremendous gain. I want to just give you one statistic about using consignment, anybody that has some concern. We did a study about 3 years ago. We took 2 years of information, of organizations that used, we did it two ways. One is we looked at organizations that had not used consignment, and then after they used consignment, and then we also just compared the ones that did and didn't. We took about 80 organizations to pull this data. And what we found was the organizations that used consignment averaged 30% more bottom line dollars. Now, does that mean that consignment's right for every event? No, doesn't mean that at all. It just meant that on a generalized deal, they raised 30% bottom line dollars, not top line, because we've got to make sure that we keep that in mind, but bottom line dollars. And so I think it's a really great tool, but we always get a lot of questions about how in the world to do it. And Amy, I know you got experience with this. Well, somebody goes and gets they go and they call a consignment company, they get some stuff, they get it out there. At the end of the day, they have an item that cost them $3,000 and they sold it for $3,250. They made $250 on a $3,000 item. And it just kind of feels a little icky when they're writing that check for $3,000 to some company to fulfill the trip. And they really didn't make much money on it. It just feels a little funky. And so I'd like to kind of just start there and about what you think about it, what your experience has been.
I mean, I think with consignment, the most important thing is you have to know your room. You have to know your donors, whether it's a $3,000 vacation, a $5,000, a $10,000. One, you have to know what's appealing to the people that spend. Typically, if you're going to use it for a live auction item, about 10% of your room actually participates in a live auction. So you have to know those donors. So I think it's important to know your room, know your donors, know what your average spending is per bidder number. I love pulling reports from previous events. I can look and see what is appealing. I mean, I might think that a Cabo trip is amazing, but when I look back at, other consignment items that we've used at different events and stuff, it might be Mexico. It might be, something different. But for me, for our events, we don't have big spenders. And I know that. So it's more appealing for my group to have a lower priced item that we can still make a significant amount of money off of, sell it multiple times, and make a profit on it that makes us feel good about it.
That's really good. I think that one of the things that happens, is we're talking to clients, and like I said, we work with other consignment. Well, they'll say, "Hey, I've got this from this company and this from this company. What can you guys do?" And our, specialty, what we really do well is things that we, somebody can sell 10, 20 times. But we also have some other great items. But in my past, working as an auctioneer, one of the things that it was real interesting is a lot of times they would come up with something off the wall and I would be like, where in the world did this trip come from? And they didn't consign. This is like a year, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And I'd be like, where in the world did they get this? And then it was some company that they had put it together with. But they hadn't done exactly what you said. The company said, oh yeah, here's this or here's that. Instead of going like to their committees, looking at the reports, who's in the crowd, who do I have here? If I've got a bunch of, young couple, I'm going to say young couples. And when I say young, I mean under 40, 35, 40 years old is young to me. That's a different than maybe if most of your folks are, let's say 50 and older. It's just a different, they're going to want something maybe a little different. They're going to want, if you've got a group of a bunch of outdoorsmen and, it's majority there, people that want to get out and go do stuff, it might be a little different. Or what kind of capacity do you have? If you never sold anything for $20,000, going and getting a $20,000 item is probably not going to work. Okay. Doesn't mean that you can't. And I want to talk about that here in a little bit, how to experiment with some stuff with your crowd without risking any money. Okay. Because it all comes back. Don't you agree, Amy? You've got a specific pie, if you would. You've got an amount of money that's there to draw the room. I don't think it's good to confuse that with items that people buy or purchase at a live or silent auction versus the fund and need. We've talked about that a lot. I know you're a big driver for that, the fund and need mission drive, but I don't think you can confuse those. But when it comes to auction items, you've got people that's got a certain amount of money. You're not, do you have 20 people that can write a check for $10,000 and not miss it? I don't know. Do you? But you guys do, because you've got your data. But if you don't, and then two, having those really high-end exclusive items is really great if you've got multiple people that can bid on it, because just because they can doesn't mean they will. And so you've got to be able to understand where your crowd is, what it's going to do, and where it fits. And I'm kind of feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but the question I want to ask Amy is, how do you see consignment fitting there, or where you see it used well to make money for nonprofits, for your organization? How have you seen consignment in that scheme to kind of figure out where the number is?
I mean, to give a little back history, if you go back 4 or 5 years, I was that nonprofit that didn't use consignment because we were in a position where we didn't necessarily need to. We had a great committee at a lot of ours that could get items. Fast forward the last few years, still have that same committee, but it's harder and harder to get those unique items. And that's what you need, is uniqueness. And that's where these consignment items can come in. You can't have items that anybody can just go out and get. You need that uniqueness. And I think once we started using the consignment, I like to use it in all aspects of my event. I like to have one as a silent auction item. I like to have one as a prize for one of our revenue enhancers or games that we play. And I like to have 1 or 2 in the live auction that we can just, sell 20 of them. Obviously in the silent auction, the revenue enhancers, you're not going to yield the same that you would as a live auction, but I really like to have that diversity and use it in all aspects of my events.
Well, since you brought that up and you spoke about yield and multiple, one of the things that I've always said about, I've talked about this a lot whenever I have a client, that says, "Hey, we've got this item, or we've got some tickets we want to combine with something, and what can we do?" And I said, "Well, you can do that, and that's fine, but just understand, when you do that, you close down on how many times you can sell that item, because unless you've got 2 sets of first class tickets and you match it up with this trip, you can't sell but one of them, because you're going to sell something different, and it is a different item." So let me give you an example. What I'm saying is, you may have an item that it costs you, I'm just going to use a real simple deal. Let's say it's cost you $2,000. Okay. Whenever I talk to a client, that item has to bring between $3,000 to $5,000. Okay. For that to make money for you guys, you've got to make at least 50%. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to make, so maybe it sells for 28,950. That's okay, but it needs to be close to making 50% or more on that item for that to work. Because if you just sold it one time and it was donated, you'd make $1,000 net, $1,000. If it was donated, you'd make $2,000, $3,000. But if you do this and you sell it 2 or 3 times, and you're making 50 to 100%, so you're netting $1,000 to $2,000, and you do it twice, all of a sudden you've netted $4,000. So you've actually netted more than what you would have if you just had it donated once. And the thing is, if it's an item that people want, multiple people are going to want it. That's what you want. You want stuff that they're going to want there.
Well, and Jason, I think that's where, you mentioned like first class tickets. That's where you make a package and it sells in your silent auction, and let people just bid it up, because then you've made this very unique package where you've got first class tickets that you match up with a great consignment trip to Italy or whatever it is, and make it a very, very appealing one that possibly wouldn't sell 10 or 20 times, but you can get 2 or 3 people that are going to bid on it, and go until you shut it off, and you can make a ton of money off it. And then you have that unique package, and it's in your silent auction, and drives up that revenue.
Well, and two, I think that's a great point. One of the things that happens that we've seen happen is don't be afraid. Everybody thinks that because, and I know there are certain rules because we've talked about them, numbers, but when we see putting significant consignment items into silent auctions, they bring fantastic returns. We've seen them do really, really well. And the reason it did really, really well is the very first bid, as soon as somebody clicks on the first bid, the nonprofit was making the money. They were making money right off the bat. And so they'd put the increments down a little smaller than normal. And that way everybody would get on there and they were making money. So we tried to pair it and to get it right where that first bid, don't ever, no matter whether you're using our stuff or anybody's stuff, whatever, make sure that the very first bid that somebody places, I'm talking about silent auction only, whether you're using a piece of paper and people are writing their bids or you're using, text, bidding or software, make sure that the very first bid you are making money. So again, if it's $1,000 item, put it in there where it's starting, your first bid is, I say 25% at minimum, but sometimes even more than that. So in other words, $1,250 is the very first bid. You're making $250 on the very first click. And, if you put it up too high, people aren't going to bid. But once somebody bids on something, perceived value starts going up and people will keep on, fighting for it because it's only another $50, only another $25. And so that's how the auction method works. But we've seen stuff sell for $6,000 to $10,000 in silent auctions and making $4,000 or $5,000. So don't be afraid of doing that. But so I've got some other questions here. Tell me some stuff. One of the things, and this is just a personal thing for me. We provide videos, we provide stuff, I would never recommend somebody if they because sometimes it happens, especially right now. We've been having people call us up and I got an email just the other day. Somebody said, "Hey, Jason, our committee's kind of just fallen through. They've had some change, whatever. We're just not getting it pulled together. I need some stuff for my auction. I've got great sponsorship. I've got great attendance. I've got to have some stuff to sell." Okay. We've got these media kits that have great videos and all the stuff. But personally, I would not do 4 videos from HGA fundraising. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use 4 of our items, but for just a little bit of money, just a little bit of investment, a little bit of time, I would recommend changing that around, remarketing the videos, so that way it doesn't look quite so canned. Make it canned to your brand, in other words. Like for MDA, you guys put together the videos and do that. Do you agree with that, Amy, or do you think it matters?
No. Yeah, I totally agree. I think, you don't want 4 videos. You want one short video. Definitely, yes, put your logo on it, make it feel, local to your event. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's one.
I love videos.
There's so many ways to market consignment items. And I think sometimes that gets missed. We think we can market it the night of the event. And I think that purchasing a vacation or a large item of an expense is a lot of times for people a conversation that needs to take place ahead of time. Husband, wife have to decide that they're going to commit to spend that kind of money. So I am all about getting it out there in advance to give people that opportunity to kind of process it. We love spur of the moment fires, but they're few and far between. So I just, videos, newsletters on your software website, send links through, of course, I'm a big software geek anyway, but send in through the text messages, whether it's a link that just takes to, your website where you've got the information. But I think you just promote the heck out of it leading up to the event.
Yeah, I think, taking videos, and we've got a couple of questions I want to get to, using those videos as promo items, pushing that stuff out there, pushing pictures, just little stuff on social media. If you've got software and text messages, sending that out to everybody, the week of the auction beforehand. Hey, who's ready to go to Cabo? Who's ready to go to Italy? Anybody, who's up for Napa? Put that kind of stuff out there because it kind of primes the pump and it puts that little seed back in the back of their mind. And you do want people who are coming there. And I've talked to people who are going, well, I'm going to go because I'm going to buy this trip. We did a deal to the Masters, and we don't provide a Masters trip, by the way. So, but we've got partners that do. We did a deal with the Masters and we had it pumped. It brought $26,000 and we sold it twice. And that was the year that Tiger Woods won, which would be the last year Tiger Woods won. And it was fantastic. So Brenda's got
I think personally,
Mhm.
It's such an easy thing to do as a pre-event newsletter, 1 to 2 weeks out, that just gives
a great idea
overview. I mean,
Mhm.
I used to create them on PowerPoint, nothing fancy, tells people, reminds them where the facility is, what the dress is, what time the event starts, and maybe a little bit of a timeline, like this is happy hour, this is what the live auction, silent auction closes. And then a section that is just teasers on these specific types of items that you put a couple of photos that you guys provide or the consignment company provides. But I just think a newsletter out to your guests ahead of time, it serves two purposes. It really helps them to kind of get a taste in their mouth or what the auction items are going to be. I always list some unique silent auction items, whatever. And then I just think it's really good customer service to provide our sponsors and donors with that little bit of information. So they have everything they need and they're not questioning before the event. Oh, where is parking? What floor are we going to for the event? Everything is right there. It's such a simple thing to do to provide all the information.
That's a great idea. I love that. Hey, we've got a question from Brenda. She said, do you put a fair market value on silent auction consignment items? I'm gonna let you answer. I've got an opinion on it, but I'm gonna let you go first.
Yeah.
I would say it depends on the item. Fair market value, I never do for live auction. For a silent auction, we do for some items. And then some that if they're unique, like a consignment item, we list them as priceless. So I think it depends on the item. I think it's good to have some items listed with fair market value. It's good to have some as priceless with, but not too many priceless, because then you kind of lose that uniqueness.
So I want to just give everybody some background on fair market value and nonprofit in the world that we live in. So according to the IRS, only if you give above fair market value is that deductible. So if someone has a fair market value of $2,000 and I buy it for $1,700, zero, according to the IRS. Now, people do whatever they want to. I'm not a lawyer, not an accountant, but according to the IRS, you could deduct zero of that amount because you've received fair market value. You've received something for those dollars in above that deal. Doesn't matter whether it was donated or not. You've received something for those goods. So only if you give $4,000. So let me give a couple of examples of how I number one, don't ever want a number on the live auction. The only way that I would want to put a number on a silent auction item is in very unique situations. And the number that I would put down is either has sold for, last sold for, something like that, and a number that because it's consignment, we have numbers. So we know that stuff is sold for $5,000, $6,000, okay? And you can do that because the fair market value doesn't mean anything, okay? Because really what you want as a consignment, as a nonprofit, you want the lowest fair market value you can because that gives your donor the most benefit for the write-off, if that makes sense. But when it comes to perception of value in what they're thinking, you want that to be as high as they can, feel like they got a great deal. So we've done this where we've done what's called a vacation station for some clients. And what a vacation station, it is a high-end silent auction where they could see all the stuff. And we put on there has sold for whatever the amount it has. That didn't sell at their event, but it sold before because we know it's sold. Let's say it sold for $6,000. That's okay. It doesn't mean and the starting bid's $2,000. Well, they know it's a perception game. And, I'm just saying, if you're going to do something like that. Don't take fair market value completely out when you're displaying it, because it is just not a good number.
Right.
Yeah. Because they think they got a great deal, but then they go to deduct it and they get nothing for it. So it's just not a good number to use.
But just as a reminder, for legal purposes, you do need to, if you're using software or, and hopefully you do need to list that fair market value from the back end for tax purposes only. So
but that's
you
what
don't have
fair
to
market
display
value
it,
is.
but
That
you do need to,
yeah.
yep.
Because that way they get the benefit of that tax deduction to your donors. So I just want to keep those two things in doing it. So we got another question from Tim.
Tim Campbell had I don't know if it was a question, but they're really great points actually, because we hear this a lot, as a matter of fact. And it's kind of been our opinion for, as long as we've been in business, quite frankly, and not disparaging donations. Once again, like the onset of the conversation, we're not disparaging donations. We need donations. Donations are lovely. Amy, obviously has some experience where she didn't even need consignment, right? And so if you do live in that space, that's lovely, right? That's a lovely problem to have, right? But Tim Campbell brought up some really, really good points about and frustrations, quite frankly, that he's had with donated items. They're very similar. There's ubiquity from one year to the next with the same donated home or what have you. What Jason and I say actually about some consignment items, and I think we mentioned this last week, if I'm not mistaken, or recently, is that you have to be very careful with any item, whether it's donated or consigned. If it's donated, you typically can't sell it more than once. And even if it's consigned, you want to be careful if you sell it more than once, because let's just say it's a private home or a private villa. Well, there's only 52 weeks in the year. And quite frankly, there's probably only about 48, 50 weeks a year that best case scenario that property can be booked. And if it's in your event, it's probably in others as well, if it's a consignment item. So that's definitely a huge consideration, is having difficulty, scheduling the trip, blackout dates, and scheduling with the owner of the property. Donations are great. Once again, that's just something to be aware of as far as just pros and cons. And Tim said, he wants to use a professional travel company that can do a great job scheduling the experience. And that's honestly where a lot of consignment companies shine, right? Is the hospitality or concierge or white glove treatment, personal touch that the company and the folks that are booking the stays provide. Feedback on the destinations. They're experts in the space. So that's actually that's a huge pro, because at the end of the day, to Tim's point as well, that he mentioned, is that any negative reflection is a poor reflection on the organization, right? So huge consideration, I think.
Well, here's the thing about donated stuff. Let's just talk about that real quick. And I think in the context that he's talking about the same frustration. So let's say that, Tim has a lake cabin. Okay. Make the lake up wherever you want it to be. But it's nice. It's okay. But it's the fourth year he's had it. Well, I bought it 1 year, Amy bought it 1 year, and Trevor, you bought it 1 year. We've all been there, done that. We don't need to do it. So all of a sudden, 3 people who are bidders, who spend the money, who support our organization, we've effectively taken an option away from them to give money to us, because we're doing it over and over and over. I sat on a board where one of the members, he had a timeshare. He always wanted to put it out there. He put it out every year. And it was funny because, well, it really did well this year. And it's like, yeah, because everybody's gone. Everybody's been to your place in Florida. It's nice. I mean, it wasn't fantastic. It wasn't like it was, a mansion or something. It was just a condo in Florida. Yeah. The donation was wonderful, but after that many times, everybody's done it. They've been there, done that. And it's like the same thing. I had another organization we worked with, another board member, and I'm picking on board members a lot. I know, but because they feel like they're doing something.
Well, they're not here right now.
And he had a lake place that was not very nice. He had a lake cabin that quite frankly, it was not much of a lake cabin. Yeah. And he'd always want to put it in there. Oh, I want that in the line, but I said, look, let's move that to the silent auction. It's not going to do as well. You're taking a slot. If you use the rule of, let's say 7 to 8 items in your live auction, and you take one of them for something you've had for 5 years in a row, you got to get that out of there, because you're losing an opportunity for the Jasons, the Amys, and the Trevors to spend money, because they're, you want something that they're going to have an option at.
That kind of turnover is good, is what you're saying, obviously. I want to throw a curveball at you, and you kind of already answered it, Jason, but I want to throw a curveball at you and Amy. A quick question about that. One response obviously would be, hey, we're going to put it in the silent auction or in a different location than the live this year. What if you have someone that comes to you year after year with the same item, and it's a donated item, and maybe they're prideful about it, which probably a lot of donors are if they have these kinds of properties, but they're coming and and your committee knows that you do not want it in your live auction again this year, for instance. What is a good response to that donor?
Hey,
Amy?
you know what? Thank you so much. We're going to do something different with your donation. It's been wonderful. We put it in the auction 5 times. It's raised us some great money.
Yeah.
We're going to use it as a way to entice to get people to come. We're going to give this door prize or do a raffle or put it in the silent auction.
Good call.
Yeah, because on the other side of
I know
it,
you've seen this before. I know you've seen this before, probably, Amy, a lot.
Well, I have. And on the other side of it, I've seen where we have used it too many years in a row.
Yeah.
And then you've upset your committee member because they're like, why is it only bringing in $1,000? You know, where they're like, they start to, you can have committee members that get upset because in their mind it's worth 3,000. You're only selling it for 1,000. You've now upset them.
Yeah.
And they may say, well, then we're just not going to use it anymore. Well, no, that's where, you know, like Jason said, that's where you want to have that conversation. We think we can yield more money by using it as a prize for this revenue enhancer that should bring in $10,000.
Correct.
So,
you know, and another scenario, which is very interesting probably as well, though, the other side of the coin, not to disparage all these donation properties, right, is that there are probably some rockin' properties and some rockin' destinations, locations that people actually look forward to every single year. And they probably get into a bidding frenzy pre-event, during the event. They talk to each other on their phones, and they talk to each other on social platforms where the items are being advertised and whatnot. And yeah, I just think there's probably another side of the coin to that as well, where people look forward to things. Yeah.
You are so right, because we had, I know in my big event, we had 3 properties that it was people that had went to it and they wanted to get it every year. And then people find out, but that goes back to, I think, where it's really important to be having the right conversations with your committee, with your big spenders, because you should go into an event knowing with these big items, approximately how many bidders you're going to have in the room, or at least a minimum number. You should have items that you know there are people in the room that are going to bid on. So you're exactly right. But that's where your software, your conversations you have with your committees and your donors are so important, and having that year-round communication with those big spenders. They'll tell you what they want.
That data is there.
And you've got to, and here's the thing, you can't have somebody comes up with a great idea. So, hey, man, I know. Let's do a cruise to Antarctica. That's awesome. I'd really like to go there. And you've got, who all wants to go to Antarctica? One person's raising their hand. Me. Okay. Probably not going to be the item that we want to put in our live auction. Now, maybe we can experiment. And like I said, I'm going to talk to you more about this vacation station, how you can use that to, get stuff like that. But don't, and I'm just going to ask this question to Amy, because I think it's really important. One of the things that in the past that's worked really well have been things like award shows, concerts, things like that. One of my favorite things to do that I think has done phenomenally in the past is a New York City Broadway. Obviously, it's been closed down. I have no idea. People have asked me, hey, are you going to do that again? No, not right now, because there's so much instability. We just don't know. We don't know what tickets. If only half of Broadway opens up, tickets are going to be sky high. So we wouldn't be able to fulfill it. So we don't want to do something like that. And with all the changes and uncertainty, that's one of the things. Have you seen in the auctions? Because what I've seen is that concerts were used to be really high. If it was somebody in Vegas or something like this, it was really awesome. I've seen it kind of go down. It's just not as good. And I think one of the reasons is because it's a limited date. I mean, you've only got 3 times that, if there's 3 concerts that you can go to, 3 dates to pick from, and trying to get something, made around that way. Tim made the comment, blackout dates and availability, and, we can only go on the 3rd Thursday of odd months, and, not including Christmas, New Year's, on any major holiday. And so it really gets hard to schedule stuff. And that's frustrating for people because we deal with that every day and we don't have any blackout dates.
Yeah.
And we know that people want to travel.
There's like those once in a lifetime things that like, and sorry just to pop in and out, but there's those once that we had a friend in the space, actually, another consignment company that sold so many Lady Gaga concerts in Las Vegas, and that was like their best seller and everything. And it was pretty limited, but it's one of those, for the person bidding, it's going to take a particular donor that's going to want to go on a stay like that or go see a show like that, right? However you feel about Lady Gaga. But there's only so many of those spots available, long story short, right? And that leads to a lot of frustration. Having the flexibility is a space that we've been playing in for a very, very long time, just because, that's a very, very hard, when things like that unravel, it's very hard to put them back together again for donors, long story short, right? And this leaves a bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah, Trevor, if you're gonna have an item that has a lot of blackout dates and a lot of, or a specific date, it has to have something unique added to it. So if it's that Broadway show that is only one day or whatever, it has to have that unique experience where maybe it's you get to go to backstage or you get to go to dinner with one of the stars of the show. I've seen things like that. Or if it's a golfing outing or something, you get to golf with somebody that is a pro. You've got to step up your game and add that extra element that's that uniqueness that people can't just go out and get anywhere.
It's got to be so good that people will cancel something else on their schedule to take that trip.
Yep.
And it's got to
be
put
it on their calendar and nothing's getting in the way of them going.
Yeah, it sounds really simple. It sounds really simple.
Well, I use the Masters. The Masters, you're not ever guaranteed tickets. It's crazy from one year to the next. It's only a certain time of the year in Augusta, Georgia, and this is it. Well, the people that are going to want to go to that, they know when that is, and they're going to they'll make arrangements for it because it's once in a lifetime type thing. Concerts get to be a little different. Like you said, it's got to be something really special, and that's where it was George who said this the other day. If you wouldn't give it away as a Christmas gift, people aren't going to want to buy it. And you really got to think about that whenever you're thinking about live auction.
I like that.
Don't get caught. I mean, I just think that events and concerts and things like that are phenomenal. I love them. I love that kind of stuff.
Me too.
But right now, honestly, I haven't been seeing it doing really well over the last couple of years because
I don't remember what a concert looks like, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. You know what? We've had a lot of luck with golf. Going to a specific golf course, Pinehurst course 3, where they, held a big event years before, held the Masters or something. We've seen a lot of success with like golf and activities.
Yep. That's funny.
That's people want to get out and go. They want to get out and go.
Jason and I were talking about that yesterday, where we're getting a lot of inquiries about our golf packages. So I think that's something that people are certainly thinking about. Obviously, it has to be the right room. If they're not golfers, then it won't fit necessarily, or if there aren't any golfers in the room. But another thing is a very, very simple component. But you were talking about advertising. We've been talking about that off and on. How to advertise these items properly, effectively. Is that when it is that once in a lifetime thing, it could be the Masters, it could be a show where the dates are predetermined. That needs to be disclosed through and through, up until the moment where the MC or the live auctioneer is auctioning it off with the microphone, right? So just to really embed that in the donor's mind, that is good for these dates and these dates only. I think that's really, really important. So those are advertised and disclosed properly, so it doesn't lead to any,
terms and conditions are everything. I've got a question. I want to get Amy's take on this. And, I've talked about using multiples and selling things multiple times. Amy, do you have any advice for folks that are listening today or on the recording, and to how to talk to their auctioneer, because I've got lots of opinions on this stuff and experience, but how to talk to their auctioneer to give great instruction, specific instruction about selling things that are consigned. I think this is really a place that gets missed because they don't give good instruction to the auctioneer, or the auctioneer says, yeah, I got it, and they don't have it,
and they only end up netting $200. Yeah, right.
So first thing is you need to have an auctioneer. I think it goes without saying. I've seen more and more, or hear more and more about people that are doing events and they're trying to use the local, radio guy or whatever, who's great, but you really need a professional auctioneer. That is so, so important. Number one. Number two, I love you, Jason, but sometimes auctioneers are very opinionated on how they do things. You have to remember that it is your event and you are paying them. Not that you shouldn't listen, because they have great event. They have, they've done successful events. They have great advice. They can help you, but at the same time, the success of the event goes back on you. So I think it's really important, one, to make sure they have the information ahead of time. Your auctioneer needs to have that information and come in prepared. Don't wait until the night of the event to say, here's our, 5 live auction items.
Yep.
Number two, if it is an item that you want to sell multiple times, I think it is so important to have that conversation with the auctioneer that our goal is not to drive this price up as high as we can. Our goal is to find that sweet spot where people are bidding on it. It is our sweet spot in that we're making a nice chunk of money off it, and we can sell it multiple times. I have seen rooms where I've had that conversation with an auctioneer, and at the end of the night, they're so excited because they started the bidding at $2,000. They got it up to $4,000. Well, guess what? There was nobody else in the room that wanted to spend $4,000. So they only made $2,000 off it. Whereas if they would have put it at, $3,000, went right in the middle and stopped there and marketed it and put it out there like, hey, we just found out we can sell as many of these events as we want, or many of these trips as we want. Who wants to go with Joe that just bid 3,000? Who else wants to go? You really have to make them understand it is about that sweet spot where we can sell it over and over. It is not about them selling it for the most that they can.
One of the things I've said this before on these previous webinars, whenever years and years and years ago, before I really knew what I was doing, I still don't, but I pretend a little better now. Somebody would come up, like, let's say I was doing an auction for Amy, and she would come and give me my list. And this is back in the days when we didn't have overheads or anything else. Everything was operated out of the program usually. And they'd come and they'd say, hey, look, we've got to have $2,000 for this item. That's the minimum. Well, the reality was that's what it was costing them. So if I sold it for $2,200, I felt like I was doing great. Yeah. Hey, because they didn't just explain it. Now, this is back. There was no, professional benefit auctioneer society or anything. There was none of that. I've been doing this for a long time. So, but even there, you could have a great auctioneer. They may be a professional bid caller. They could be in the car business. They could be, right there in your hometown, and they're donating their services, but they're still a pro. You got to be real specific, because if you're not really specific with it, they're going to get going through it, and they're going to get caught up in the moment, and they're going to miss it. Okay. Be real specific. Say, I really need you to see this. We're paying $2,000 for this item. I want it to bring at least $3,000. If it brings at least $3,000, but I want you to stay on the money and say these words, but stay on the money because we can sell more than one. If you use those key terms, stay on the money, we can sell multiple, that will help them and they will understand it. You're speaking their language, because then they're going to know what you're talking about. But otherwise, they're going to go sell it for $5,000, think that they just really did well, and they did. But you sold it one time, and you could have sold it 15 times for $3,000 and made $15,000. So it's really important that you have those conversations and just tell them. And I've said this to you guys before. If you ever have somebody that you're not really sure that they understand, or you want to make sure they get it, call me. Send me an email, send me an intro. I'll have a 10-minute conversation with them and we'll get them going. I do it all the time and love to do that. So, it's really good.
And you have to give them all the details. They cannot sell a trip when you're giving them, it's a trip to Cabo for 5 days. You need to provide them every detail. They're professional marketers. They're going to market that item from the stage. That is what they're good at. But if you don't provide them the details that they need, they can only do so much. You can have the best auctioneer in the world, but if they don't have the right details, that's on you.
So Tim asked a question about how to sell multiples. I'm going to tell you really quick. And somebody shared this with me, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I've been able to sell, multiples and do this, but this is the way. There is multiple, but this is the best way. So to give you a really quick example, if Trevor, are you there? Come back on the screen. I need you.
I'm right here, amigo.
Let's bring you back on so everybody can see us. So let's just play. I'm the auctioneer, and I've got Amy and Trevor, my bidders. Okay.
I'm going to win.
So, all right, $500. I got $500 with Amy, $1,000 with Trevor, now $1,500, now $2,000, now $2,500 with Amy, now $3,000. Thank you, Trevor. $3,500 Amy, $4,000 Trevor. Come on, $4,000, $4,500. One of y'all stop bidding anytime. $4,500, $45,000, $5,000, $5,000. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've got Amy right here at $5,000, $5,500 Amy. It doesn't really matter because it's just going to stop. Okay. Now I could do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I could do all that, but I want to make sure y'all get what I'm doing. So I've got Trevor at $5,000.
Yes.
Amy was my high bidder at $4,500. Amy, are you still good at $4,500? You are? Well, let's do this. Let's make some real money here tonight. I'm going to sell it to you, Amy, for $4,500. I'm going to sell it to Trevor for $4,500. We just raised $9,000. Everybody give everybody a hand. Come on, give a big hand, everybody. It's the easiest thing in the world. But now if I say sold to Trevor for $5,000 and I try to get Amy for $5,500 or for the same $5,000, she said no to 55. It is a 50-50 deal whether she bids again or not. It's 50-50. But if I back up to the last bid that she did at $4,500, it's 100%. She's already said she would bid $4,500. She will back up and come in. She'll say, because she doesn't, she did. She bid $4,500.
You want to win.
Mm-hmm.
And Trevor's at $5,000, so he's definitely going to take it for $500 less. It is 100% to sell multiples, to sell at least two. And then you go, does anybody else want to go for that same price of $4,500? Let's raise some money here tonight. Absolutely. Come on. Who else wants to go? And somebody else going to raise their hand. And it works every time. It works every time.
Everybody listening, everybody watching this goes, wait, they could have got 5,000. They backed it down. They got it for 500 less. That must be a really good deal. Let me in on it.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you bring up a really great point. You bring up a really great point about other folks in the room wanting to get involved, right?
I did this one night with a trip we provide. I did this one night with a trip we provide. I sold it for $10,000. I had $10,000. A guy was looking at me, stomping his foot, pounding the table because he wanted to bid $10,500. Yes. I said, ladies and gentlemen, hold on just a second. I've got $10,000 right here. And we sold it 5 times for $10,000.
Yep.
It works because, of course, he was wanting to bid $10,500, and so he bid on it. The person that was there, so I sold it for $10,000, sold it 5 times. My point to this is this works every time. But again, if I sold it for Trevor for $5,000 and I go, hey, Amy, you're my backup bidder. Do you want to come in at $5,000? Most of the time, what she's going to say, I'm at $4,500.
Yeah.
Well, then now I really I can sell it to her for $4,500, but it just doesn't. No, we want everybody to feel good, and I'm getting all fired up. You want everybody to feel good about it, and if I back up and sell it to her for $4,500 and sell it to him for $4,500, everybody's excited. Everybody's clapping, cheering because a
lot of excitement in the room that way,
and it builds in your room. So Tim, I hope that explains it, but that's how
It's amazing.
that's how you see it.
It's amazing how little this practice is utilized. And it's and so funny. In Amy's events, it's always utilized. And in our events, gosh, Jason, I mean, 95% of the time we're seeing multiple sold.
It is very seldom. It is very rare.
20 times. Yeah,
that
it's so
people
rare that we don't
send us 2 names for every item that they've sold. It's very rare.
I mean, and even then, I could even give you another statistic that says like 85% of them are like 4 names or more for one item.
Yeah.
85% of our events. But it's amazing
and I think something else, like not only do you make more money, but in my opinion, from what I've seen, it just changes the dynamics in the room.
Yep.
The energy just changes, and people, you get people start buying these vacations. They're getting a vacation, but it's like people are excited, and they know they're doing a good thing. They're helping a good cause, and they're getting a vacation, and it just raises the energy level in your room, which is what you need, especially. I mean, nothing against the program part of it and stuff, but listen to presenters and stuff can drag you down. But man, when you start doing this and you sell it multiple times, your energy level goes up a notch
through the roof.
Shannon just brought
caveat. Let me just ask a question really quick, Jason. And I already know the answer, but let me ask you and Amy this question. How often will it be a scenario where the bidding's done and you have multiple winners? Let's just say you have 2, 5, 10 winners, and people still approach you after the live auction is over and the fund and need is over, and they want to buy one of the items. Hey, I saw a bunch of those get sold for $4,500, and my husband was in the restroom. Can I get in on that? And that happens all the time. That happens all the time.
You're so
one of Amy's golf tournaments, a friend of ours, Big Mike, was in the parking lot leaving, and some guy said, "Hey man, can we get any more of these?" He goes, "Absolutely." Walked them right back in and sold 2 more trips of the Caribbean Craze in the parking lot. They sold like 10 or 12 of them, but I mean 2 in the parking lot. And he texted us and
reach out to me after the event through an email and say, I know I thought about it.
They missed out.
I don't want to miss out. Can I get one of those?
One of the most powerful things you can do.
Feature. Shannon brought up a good point in the chat feature, and potentially these winners can go together. That's a great point, Shannon. I just don't want to ignore that. That's a great point.
Yeah. Well, it happens all the time. You got people, let's say there's 8 people to a table, 4 couples, and it's a trip for 2. And I sit there and go, Amy, you guys want to go? Hey, let's just all go. Hey, right here, we'll take 4. It happens all the time. I got one more point I want to make real quick about the multiples and stuff like that. It's really powerful, and we're talking about this, but it doesn't take that many of them to really bring up some money for your bottom line, and that's the point of it all. It's we're talking about consignment, but I want to get to one piece because we've got 6 minutes left. We will not go over. We've always promised that. One of the things that we've seen that's worked really, really well, and this is a live event only, okay? You could do this in a silent or a virtual or something like this, but it really works well. Go get some nice foam core board. We've got the printouts for any of this stuff, and most anybody will have this. Any consignment company can get this for you. Put 6 to 10 trips up on a desktop. Call it a really specific deal, high-end stuff. I'm talking where the starting bid is $5,000, $4,000 or $5,000, okay? High-end stuff, put it, with $250 increments and put it up there where they can do it. I'm telling you, people will bid on this stuff when you least expect it. Make sure that your first bid you make money on. But what it is, that's where you can try something, where maybe that you think, well, I really think that we got people that would buy something for 10 grand, but I'm not really sure. I don't want to risk it. You're out the cost of a poster board, or a foam core board, $20-$30, big deal. You don't have any risk. Put out, I can assure you will sell some trips. We've never done one of these that they didn't sell a couple of trips. One event I did, they sold 11. They sold 11 trips for $95,000 total what they raised on it. Think about what the average is. It's pretty good. So, you can raise some serious money doing this stuff with consignment, but just don't go into it just thinking, well, I'm just going to get some stuff, throw it in my auction. It'll be kind of cool. Well, this sounds like a cool trip. You know, we know what sells well because that's what we sell. I mean, we do. Other consignment companies, when you ask them, say, what's it been bringing at auction? Ask that number, ask that question. What's this been bringing? Don't ask what sells, because they'll sell what they're, I mean, a lot of times, a lot of companies, they've got a certain, you know, they've got a group, a block of tickets. They're trying to move those tickets because they bought them for a concert. Don't just say ask, what has it been selling for? That's a great question. I love when people ask, how much money can I expect to raise off this? You know, with the Cabo Caribbean craze, I always say you can bottom line raise $6,000 to $10,000. Now, we've had people raise $22,000 with it. You know, they sold 22 times and raised 22 grand. But I'm not going to tell you that. I want you to, you know, let's be realistic, because if you've only got a crowd of 100, it's a small event. Well, you know, you may not sell it. You might, but chances are it's going to sell, but it'll probably sell 6 times. So always keep those things in mind about what stuff's bringing. You know, and just know it's going to be somewhere in that average. It may not be the 10,000. It may not be the 4,000. It may be the 5 to 6. But, you know, let them give you a range about where it's going to bring, because at the bottom line is what matters to you. It's that bottom line. That's what goes into your bank. Okay. So make sure you're doing that. We've got,
I'm very excited.
I've got a winner real quick. I've got a winner. So
I got to interrupt you. I got it. Cause I want that person to win. I want that person to win. And I think that's amazing. But because we're such huge proponents of selling multiples, I need a show of hands of people who have not received one of our items at the end of a webinar before, because we kind of limited, you know, one per organization. Are there hands of folks that have not won before? Because I think we should give away multiples this week. I think that'd probably be a good idea.
Well, wow. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
As long as it's not 11
8,
people.
9,
as long as
10,
it's not
11
people. Nah, that's too
11.
many. No, I'm joking.
Well,
I think we should give away multiple items that folks can use at their next event. So, yeah, we'll jot that down, of course. And
I'm writing it down now. I'm writing it down.
Very excited.
Don't leave, because if you leave, you're going to lose here.
But if you have won one before, we're not going to duplicate, you know. But here we go. And Mr. West, you're out. You cannot. I'm sorry, sir. You cannot, Mr. West. Yeah, I think in true multiple fashion, I think it'd be a good idea. This is something that Jason and I have been wanting to do for a bit, and so here we are.
Very
Amy,
fitting.
I'm not kicking anyone off or anything like that right now. Amy, thanks a ton for taking the time during tournament season to spend this time with us, because you're beyond an expert in this space, and I really, really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Jason's going to be sending out the registration link. If we miss anyone, you know, we're super easy to reach. Amy's super easy to reach if we have any back questions. We're going to include her on the email send out with the the recording link, not the registration link. And we have some new stuff coming next week. Jason, would you like me to drop the information on them?
Let's just tell real quick. So just so you know, we're got a special guest host next week, so be really nice. We're so excited that Mark West from Team West in New Braunfels, Texas, that he is a phenomenal fundraiser, does a great job. He's going to be leading the way next week, because Trevor and I are going to go explore some of the places that we like you guys to go. And
we're going to go do some product research next week. And it only took us, we stayed locked in 27 weeks in a row. So we're pretty darn excited. It's going to be a real drag to miss it, of course, because we don't want to, because it's so near and dear to us to see everyone every week. But next week is going to be a phenomenal episode. And
the deal is, you're going to learn how to take a $500 silent auction item and turn it into $5,000.
Perfect.
Really
awesome.
Cool deal.
So let's go, everybody. And if you have any questions for us, once again, Trevor at HGA Fundraising, Jason at HGAfundraising.com, Amy Myers, she's going to be on there on any emails that we send out, so you can respond to all of us or one of us. If you like one of us more than the others, that's fine. We're not going to be offended. We can't thank you all enough for coming. And please let us know how you can utilize this item at your next events, and we're happy to help. So thanks a ton. Thanks, Jason. Thanks a ton, Amy.
Okay.
Profuse.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
See you guys. We
All right,
appreciate you
safe
so much.
travels.
Okay. Take care.
All right. Bye now.